Hey everybody, welcome back to another business analysis video on our series Tips from the Experts, where we invite and explore experienced business analysts, professionals to help us grow in our career as business analysts. Today, I'm thrilled to introduce a special guest, John Wisner, a highly respected leader in the field with a wealth of experience and unique perspective on what it takes to succeed as a business analyst, right? In this conversation, we're going to explore John's journey into business analysis and how to find joy as a business analyst in your career. But before I give too much away, let's hear from John Wisner himself. Hi, John. Welcome to Tips from the Experts. So could you tell us a bit about your background and how you found yourself in the world of business analysis?
Good to meet you again. See you. Be on the show.
You too.
I've been a business analyst now for, I think it's about 25 years. It's amazing how you say that and actually the years tick on. Like I have to keep checking myself as to whether the numbers are still accurate, but it's been a while. So I think around 99 actually was when it first started, and I was working for a large Swiss bank at the time, and just being doing loans as part of my day-to-day job. And I was somebody that like using Excel and macros as an example, sort of started to automate those tasks that I was doing repetitively every day, really. And the head of the loans change team or lending change team, he sat nearby in the office, and I think observed what I was doing for myself, and maybe saw it as something that could be beneficial. You having that sort of like mentality to come and do some analysis, and brought me into it was a team. It was only me and him really, and so we're looking after lending change globally at that point. And I've probably spent a few months of just being in meetings and trying to learn different concepts before I even realised I was a business analyst at the time. I thought. Really, I was just trying to be involved in change and be an expert for lending. But it sort of took that long to appreciate what I was actually doing and what the title for my new role was, because it was really never formal. But from that point, really just starting to engage with different stakeholders, start to understand, their requirements, their issues, understand their process, taking that and thinking about how we could apply that insight and think about some solutions that would make their day a little bit better, a little bit easier, a little bit more manageable and predictable, as it were, while maybe giving others outside the team that transparency around what was happening and linking up some of the data that was being captured throughout the process. All of that sort of come together, and it proved to be a good baptism and sort of a good way to get into business analysis for the first time, and not really look back. It's been really interesting. It's a role I'm very fond of, to be fair, as it's probably obvious.
Yes, of course, it's obvious. Amazing. Well done. And I suppose in that time, there wasn't the job title business analyst, was there?
No, there was. No,
there was? Okay.
Yeah, that's right. It was, I guess, how much further back it went, I couldn't say, but I do recall, once I'd realised the role was called business analyst, after that 3-month point, once I started to, understand what I was doing and recognise actually that maybe if this is a role, maybe there are some other ways of doing it and maybe some formal things that I could learn, and I remember reaching out and we had the BCS, or British Computer Society, so I think I went there physically, went to their bookshop and saw a book on business analysis. It was Debbie Paul's book, which is a great one, definitely worth reading anybody. Read that and thought, okay, so that's what I'm doing, and what more there was to the BA role, and recognising some of the formal processes that were available, some of the techniques that were available. And I sort of set myself a challenge without really knowing I'd said it, of sort of like try and use some of those techniques as much as I could and test them out. And I was in a great environment at UBS where I had the ability to learn these new techniques and apply them and see if they worked and see which ones didn't work. So that sort of took me to that path, really, I guess, of using the techniques and developing my skill set a little bit.
Very interesting. So, off that point, what would you then say? What aspects of business analysis would you say you find most fulfilling, and why?
So I think really there's a couple of aspects, really. So I think principally it's around, it's really enjoy sort of like meeting new people and learning a little bit about something I wasn't aware of before. So learning about new products or processes or maybe not so much solutions, but that's something that comes by as well. Definitely learning new techniques and thinking of different ways to apply the knowledge you have and the information you have, and apply it in different ways for the outcomes that you need. So some examples of that might be, how can you use different visualization techniques? How can you use different functional models to sort of analyze a situation, but also to present the information back to people? So that interest in meeting people is definitely at the heart of having a fulfilling role, I think. But that sort of quite closely coupled with that is then, some of these people, as you develop your BA career, are not stakeholders that you're meeting as such. They're team members that you'll be working with, or they might be people in your team that you're supporting as well. And that provides like a different level of fulfillment as well. It's I've worked with some brilliant BA teams over the years, and that building up that relationship and subsequently friendship with those individuals. Many of them go back many years, and I'm glad to say I still see them today, which is excellent. And seeing them develop, and just having that good relationship and that good team ethic is really good. But then when it goes to having individuals in your team, the fulfillment comes from actually seeing perhaps people develop, learn new skills, get some value, maybe out of some of the advice that I might have shared, or maybe sort of just through observing some of the things that I might have done, that they take some benefit from it. And it's always worth recognising that it's not a one-sided thing. Very most of the time, whilst the team are learning from me, I'm always learning something from every member of the team as well. So that's good in its own way. So I think it feels like, just to summarise the point, meeting new stakeholders, meeting new teammates, helping people develop as well, and learning a little bit as we go along. Solving some of the problems of the businesses and the stakeholders I work with. That's really something of interest as well. But I think the most fulfilling bit is the bit connected to the people I work with.
Yes, that's really interesting, because I can also relate in the 10 years of my career in business analysis, all the business analysts or team members that I've maintained that relationship with. And it sort of builds a community too, where you can learn from each other, seek help, just like with you, meeting you to building relationships. Yeah, it's really interesting. So was there a specific moment or a specific project where you realized that this was the career that you're truly passionate about?
In an interesting way, it was by doing things that weren't business analysis that probably emphasised that this was the right role. So I think, I guess, when I first started as a BA, it was almost like there was this perception that every BA, if they do really well, they'll become a lead BA, and if they do well again, they'll become a project manager, right? And then who knows where they go. It wasn't really, I guess it was never really advertised to me or evident to me at the time that being connected to business analysis could be the end point as well. And until you explore those different connected roles, being a project manager, maybe doing some testing, maybe doing some program management office or program management roles, or even maybe if you really get the opportunity, doing some architecture or some development work as well. they're all opportunities to learn a little bit about different parts of the overall change process. And for some people, they will think actually the best course for them is to move outside the analysis role, maybe to project management or whatever else it is. But for a lot of people, it's a good, including myself, it's a good way of thinking actually. What I really like about analysis is the fact that I get to learn a little bit about the situation. I can get into some detail. I feel like actually intellectually I'm adding some value to the situation by thinking about what the solutions are or bringing people together. Whereas, whilst I've worked with some excellent project managers and program managers over the years, my mentality is like I find that quite restrictive and admin heavy, and I sort of like prefer the creative side and getting into the detail and learning something, and feeling like I can stand up at a point during the analysis and talk about something because I know that I've spoken to Pippa in the team and she's problem, and actually I've explored what that problem is and I've got some data that backs it up, rather than I spoke to John who spoke to Pippa, because it's a little bit more difficult if you're trying to present information in that way. So that's probably my response is sort of like finding that passion was by doing a bit of some of the other roles and then realising how much more the BA role had to offer me. There's so many different things you can do as a BA. So many different levels of detail you can get to. There's also loads of different domains and industries as well. So there's probably something for everybody, I would say. That's the way I feel about it. And I think it's just been built upon over the years. Once you realise that there is a career path for people that want to be involved in analysis, it doesn't have to necessarily end in you having a BA in your title. It could be product owner, for example, still relies heavily on the skills that a business analyst have. I think most product owners, good ones, are actually, they're not entirely BAs, but they are applying their BA expertise as well as maybe their expertise in other areas as well. So I think the BA role really gives you that capability to move up. And it's funny, as on a BA Insight session, I think it was a few weeks ago, so we were talking about the fact that maybe if some CEOs had been BAs in the past, it might be helpful to them because they can actually find it easier to connect all the different points that are happening across their organisation and to think about how everything comes together. So maybe there's something in that, but I'll have to let you know at some point.
There definitely is, Yeah, definitely. Because we get into the detail, strategic level, tactical level. It helps us really understand how the whole organization works. So there's a good point there with the CEO being a business analyst in the past will definitely add some value for the work that they do. So it definitely makes sense. I'll look out for that episode of BA Insights. Is it out yet so we can watch?
I'll be honest, I can't remember which one it was on. I just remember a mini topic. It's been, as you know, there's
of course.
weekly sessions coming out on YouTube all the time, and actually, I'm a little bit ahead, so I can never remember exactly what the session it was in. But maybe that'll encourage someone to look through and find it.
Yeah,
but
no worries.
It was brought up anyway.
Yeah, no worries. So for viewers, I'm going to leave John's YouTube link in the description section so you can explore the videos that he has. Really interesting insights on business analysis. You really, really need to watch out for those. Okay, so going on to my next question, moving to business analysis and the enjoyment of business analysis. For me, I would first say what I enjoy is I know you enjoy the people side, meeting people, and you need that area to then be able to do the business analysis work. Whereas for me, I actually enjoy doing the work, being on my own and then performing my analysis, as opposed to meeting the people and speaking to the people. But knowing that I can't do that, I can't do my work without actually meeting people, building relationships. Really interesting. So I wanted to ask you, following on from there, what activities or tasks in your day-to-day work as a BA bring you the most joy?
Well, I think there's a few on that, I guess. I mean, at different levels. So I guess in my day-to-day role, working with clients, delivering on projects, the bit I actually really enjoy is just finding creative ways to sort of like visualize the analysis. So sometimes it's actually just using some tried and tested techniques, and there's loads of them. I think someone mentioned to me there might be 130 techniques in one of the later books out on the topic. But there's also like a load of related techniques as well, which are maybe more visualization techniques that you can use. So I think just exploring, what are the right ways to present the information that you've got, to combine things like process and data and information about stakeholders, or even, what the solution could look like or what it could comprise of, and trying to paint that picture for the stakeholders, irrespective of whether they're part of the business or part of technology or elsewhere, to paint that picture so they can try and understand what I've had the opportunity to understand over a period of time, and to hopefully off the back of that make some informed decisions. Because as BAs we don't make the decisions, we just hopefully line our stakeholders up and the rights and sponsors up, so they have all the information they know they need to make an informed decision. And I think painting that picture for them as to some of the connected points, and I think that's really important. And I actually really enjoy that activity. As a BA, it's not only is doing it enjoyable, because it sort of helps me. I mean, I feel like I've got a creative side. It gives me a creative outlet. But painting that picture and joining things together that you've worked on is a good way of learning and making sure that the information you've had, it sinks in. And if bits haven't sunk in and your picture doesn't line up properly, what that shows is actually some of your analysis needs to be enhanced, or you're missing things. Right. Because if you can't paint that full into picture, there must be something in between that is missing. So that's another good reason to do it, I would say, beyond that creative outlet. I think beyond, and that, I guess that's one side of my day-to-day, which is the role itself and the detail, and beyond that, and beyond the working with the team and stakeholders, as I mentioned, training is something that I've been fortunate enough to be involved in at Capco for almost all my time there, developing the BA training and leading on that and delivering it, regularly. I think we have about 25 sessions a year on training. So that's really enjoyable. It's a good way for me to meet people at Capco that I might not meet otherwise. And it's a good way to actually enhance some of your other BA skills that you're going to need. So I think as advice to anybody as BA would be, if you can start to try and learn about how to deliver training and facilitate a session and try and engage a set of stakeholders over the time it needs to for training, probably when it comes to presenting your analysis, it will probably be better as a result, because you'll know how to interact with a room, you'll know how to bring different stakeholders together, you'll know how to structure and refine your message so that it's actually, understandable for those in the room. And perhaps, to make it repeatable so it doesn't have to be you just doing it as well. So it's quite an interesting and useful skill, whilst also being surprisingly enjoyable, actually.
Yes.
I enjoy doing the training, but I really do.
Surprisingly enjoyable if it's a happy path. Which leads on to my next question. How do you maintain excitement and positivity in your work when dealing with difficult projects or difficult stakeholders? Because as much as we would always want a happy path process, there are always the problems and the pain points, as with dealing with the stakeholders that we need to engage with to draw out our requirements and do business analysis. So how would you say that you maintain that excitement and positivity in your role?
Well, I think you need a bit of context, and you have to stand back a little bit sometimes. And I think if you're unfortunate enough that your very first role is the difficult one, or your very first stakeholder is a difficult one, it might actually feel quite daunting at the time, and it might be the sort of thing you think, I'm not sure I like business analysis. But trust me, stick with it. Probably the next projects and the ones beyond that, they will be better and easier and more enjoyable in different ways. And almost certainly, different stakeholders, most stakeholders, I think 99% of stakeholders are, nice people to work with, enjoyable interactions you have with them. So maybe having that difficult stakeholder, difficult project provides a bit of context. As in, if you have a difficult stakeholder, try and think of them as like, right, okay, well, I know why that stakeholder is difficult on one hand. Maybe every other stakeholder that is potentially difficult in the future, because I know how to deal with this one, maybe actually it's going to be relatively easy and it's not going to be as daunting next time, And if in the future you find someone who is more daunting than that first bad stakeholder, they become your new bad stakeholder that you measure everyone else to. And what it means is that you're only really ever worried about one stakeholder who isn't particularly great throughout your whole BA career, because everyone else is comparatively not that difficult. So that's I guess one thing that I always try to remind myself. Also as well, when it comes to stakeholders, difficult stakeholders are generally difficult because there is a reason they're difficult. They're normally difficult because they have a stressful day, because the process they're working on is not very helpful or the solution, the tools they have are not very good, or the structures around them are not particularly helpful. And your job as a BA is to try and find out why they're having a hard time during the day. And maybe for some of them, actually, you can relieve some of that pain and therefore, win them round, and they won't be as difficult in the future. But sometimes you just got to hold your hand up and say, look, some people are going to be difficult. Just that's their way. And don't take it personally, and don't try and alter your style too much if actually it's down to them. But as for a difficult project, maybe there's something as well to enjoy, because probably all state projects are a little bit difficult in different ways, and you'll definitely you tend to learn more from the difficult projects once you've retrospectively you think back on what they are and how they went and what you took from them. So maybe all that context is just getting through the pain and realizing that when you do, you'll have something valuable to look on back, and you'll have some experience that you can measure other projects too. And you might have learned something along the way you probably would have done as well. So just try and take it, not take it too personally probably, and try not to get too stressed out about it, because projects or stakeholders don't tend to be with you for your whole career.
That is good advice. Thank you so much. This really means a lot to me too, because I do have some mentees who come feeling that they have that daunting feeling of tackling challenges with stakeholders. So that's really, really helpful. And what I usually say to my mentees is think of them as they're just people like you. There's somebody's dad, there's somebody's uncle, so that it can help you to go through that challenge and learn and take it forward to the next difficult stakeholder you might experience. But your advice is also really, really helpful. Thank you for that. And I hope that the viewers are listening and taking these points.
If you don't mind, like you just mentioned that about like stakeholders and things, and someone mentioned to me many years ago, like when I probably first started in financial services, really, they said that everybody's the same grade or level on the street. Okay, and basically what they meant from that is, that all right, someone might be like the manager or the head of the department or whatever they might be, but when we leave the office and we leave work, we're all the same.
Exactly.
So just bear that in mind, and actually, no matter what someone is to you at work, realize that they're no better than you outside of work, which means actually they're no better than you inside of work. They just have a different role, a different level, different job title. And I think that sometimes can just make you think, yeah, okay, they're no better or worse than me. I can get over whatever aggro that they give me during the day.
Yeah, hit the nail on the head. That's really, really great advice. Great advice. Which kind of feeds into my next question. What advice would you give to business analysts who are struggling with burnout for whatever reason, whether it's stress from stakeholders or lack of motivation in their career?
I think the first thing really is probably just to voice that issue, really. I think if you keep it bottled up to yourself, then you've only got yourself to help solve it. And actually, if you share your concerns, then generally we find ourselves in supportive work environments. We generally work with companies, our own organisations are supportive. I know Capco is supportive of these sort of things. I know the team that I work in is always supportive. The BA community is supportive as well. So there's always someone that you can voice your concerns to or your issues to just ask their advice, I think. And I think if you do that, maybe then it gives them the opportunity to give you some advice that is worth taking. And maybe that will help, but I think if you bottle it up, you've got no way of figuring it out unless it's just you figuring it out, which can be done as well. But maybe it's easier to share it and see what happens.
Yeah, like they say, a problem shared is half solved.
That's it. Yeah, and actually, that's true, because even sometimes just like saying something out loud, you can go, that sounds quite ridiculous, or actually, now I say it out loud, I realise how to solve it. Whereas it's very easy to get quite insular and to just think about a situation entirely through one lens and just look at it to internalise it too much.
Definitely. So coming to my next question is about learning. When I talk on my YouTube channel, I do talk about learning, continuous learning, although I do struggle sometimes because I don't really enjoy studying, but I do enjoy the outcome of studying, right? So it's knowing that, okay, I just have to go through this study period just so that I can progress to the next step. What advice would you give us on how to find joy in continuous learning, and what keeps you motivated to grow in the field through continuous learning?
I think when it comes to advice, I think it's probably first just about think to yourself, what's your style, what is your preference, what is your, what time have you got available, how do you like to learn? I think that's very important actually, because if you don't answer those questions, then there's a chance that actually you're going to sign up for some training or learning that isn't really aligned to the way you want to learn. So we don't, like as an example, I get quite a bit from just reading different books that people have taken the time to publish, right, and to think about. And generally, the act of someone writing a book means they haven't just written it they haven't just written it in one go. They've probably had to really think about every step and probably change some steps as well to make it easier to understand and appreciate. So therefore, you've got the benefit of someone's deliberation there on a page that you can read and try and apply it to your own situation. So, and of course, you can do that in your own time. You don't have to, and you can do it at your leisure and at what pace you want to do. So I find that pretty useful. I think, training, formal training, classroom or online is a really good way as well to get wider perspectives and to learn from the others that are in the class as well. I think attending things like conferences are a great example, or being a member of the IBA and attending some of their chapter events or some of their events that they have, or BCS or similar. Those things like these professional bodies like BCS and IBA or conferences are a good way to learn from what others are doing, so you can appreciate some of the things that you might want to learn in more detail. Because I think if you've got the context of what something is, why it might be useful, then you go and learn it. It's a lot easier than learning something that you're not really sure why you're going to use it. I'll put my hands up. Right? At school, I wasn't one for languages or French because I couldn't see myself using it. Okay, yeah. If I knew that my plan was to move to Paris and to be a chef, and I was going to have to speak French, that would have put a whole different spin on me learning the language, and it would have made it so much more relevant to me in that situation. So I think it's the same for people in whatever they do. They have to know why they're learning and what there is to learn, and then pick the thing that they want to learn, and then learn in a way that suits them, and maybe try ways out in between to figure it out. And I think YouTube channels like your own, Pippa, and others, they're a really good way of just dipping your toe in without too much commitment and just sort of seeing what's out there or what others are thinking of or what others are talking about. From that, you might get inspired to pick up a book or go and join a course or attend a conference or contact the IBA. I think start somewhere and just explore, and don't be afraid to stop if whatever we're doing isn't the right thing for you, and pick something else up.
Yes. So the main thing is starting so that you can experience, isn't it? And then know for yourself whether, okay, this is where I want to continue in, the path that I want to continue.
People are going to learn anyway. People got to realise that they're going to learn even if they don't want to learn. So they can probably learn on their own terms. It's probably better, and if they learn something, maybe they're learning things through like negative experience. Maybe it'd be better to apply themselves so they can learn from a positive experience.
Thank you. My next question is advice for aspiring and experienced business analysts. Are there any tips you can offer to new business analysts on how to find joy in their role early on in their career, knowing that there are challenges, there are hurdles, just so that they don't give up? Because again, like I mentioned about my mentees, they always have that daunting feeling, imposter syndrome, and all those things that could stop you from actually finding the joy in the role. So are there any tips you can offer us?
I think there's a few that appear obvious to me. I think so. One, speaking to as many different BAs as possible is a good way of doing it. There are groups like the YBA. There'd be a good group to reach out to if you find yourself on a team and you're on your own and you haven't got any other young BAs in your organisation. Maybe approaching an organisation like the YBA might be useful. Young business analysts. So that could be an option. Or just reaching out to or attending an IBA event. Even if it's on a topic you're not really sure you want to listen to too much, but maybe you turn up, see who else is in the room. I guarantee you probably pick something up from the session anyway, but maybe you'll sit next to somebody and there'll be a BA or connected to it because they're on a BA session. Why not ask them how their experience is and learn from them a little bit? That might be a good way as well to see what there is. I think a little bit of study is probably a good thing as well. And I think whilst I'm not being sponsored by Debbie Paul, I should add at this point. Business analysis. It's really digestible. It's not like hundreds and hundreds of pages. It's digestible. It's straightforward. Gives you a good overview of what business analysis is and what some of the activities are and some of the techniques that you can use. I think just that is just a nice grounding, just to realise how expensive the role could be. And then once you know that, there'll be things as you read it that will resonate with different people. Some people will really like the speaking to different people. Some people like the process. Some will like the solution. Some will like requirements. Some will like other things. And it's about just knowing what there is, having that awareness of what comprises the BA role. And then you're in that situation where you can speak to your line manager or you can speak to whoever you're working with and express, that interest in doing something more aligned to your interest. And you'll probably be better armed to be able to say, what the benefit of it is, because, from looking at whatever book it is you've chosen to read, you'll not only know what the technique is and you'll know it's of interest, you'll also know what the benefit of using it conceptually is. And I use the word conceptually because you wouldn't have tried it at that point, but so those things come together, and just, I think, practice and try and do as much as you can. I think maybe as a BA as well, just trying opportunities to work in different areas on different projects and do different roles, and even helping the PM and the PMO and the program manager or the test team or developers. If you've got any time, go and ask them what they're doing and how it works and how what you're doing connects to them, and that will help. And if it doesn't, maybe you'll learn something about a role that you might want to learn a bit more about. If you want to be a tester, as an example.
Makes sense. And you said something about attending conferences. I could relate to that as well, because at the start of my career, it was daunting for me to meet people. That was an area that I generally had struggled with in the past. So attending conferences is a way to challenge yourself as well, to start putting yourself out there, to actually start interacting with people to help with business analysis.
It's quite a good way of it as well, like almost like testing some of them skills. Because I don't think there's many people out there, like when you've got that very first meeting with a stakeholder you've never met before, there's always that little bit of like uncertainty, how are they going to be? How are they going to get on with me? How easy is the session going to be, or how difficult is it going to be? And most of those sessions, you've probably preempted it by putting some time in the diary, so at least they know it's coming. So maybe if you're at a conference or somewhere similar, just challenging yourself to go and wander up to somebody, introduce yourself.
Exactly.
It can help, as I found, from doing the BA Insight sessions, reaching out to people through LinkedIn on the BA community and just having a look at what they've been posting perhaps, or saying hello, and being prepared to help them and give them something back in return as well also definitely helps. So maybe doing all those different things will make you feel a bit more comfortable speaking to others, and you can take it back to your day job, which is, I guess, the point.
Yeah, exactly. So the same question, but for experienced business analysts, how can they rediscover their passion and enthusiasm for the work if they feel that it's fading? And I'm asking this question because at some point in my career, I also felt like, I think I'm done with business analysis. I felt like I was stagnant in my career at one point. And again, I've always been the type of person who challenges myself, and I just jumped into contracting to experience various industry, various work expectations, just to test myself and see, let me see what else I can do here to try and rediscover my passion in business analysis. But that's one thing that I did. But what would you share with us? What can you share with us?
I mean, I think that's definitely a good approach. I mean, it's certainly something that has helped me at different times. I mean, I remember being permanent and somewhere, and then becoming a contractor, and then and now I'm a consultant. So I sort of feel like I've sort of experienced three different sides of the sort of theoretical triangle, as it were, and they all have their own benefits, commonalities, and challenges as well. But they also let you appreciate the positive side of what you're doing from a different direction. So just reminding yourself sometimes of that is helpful. It's not the silver bullet. It's not the thing that will help entirely, but it is one of the factors that can help. I think as well, just taking time for yourself. Charlie and I, when we presented at a BA conference recently on BA enjoyment. In order to present that, what we started doing was thinking about ourselves as individuals and thinking about, what's at the root cause of why we enjoy certain things, or what would we like to get from our role, and there was other techniques that we applied as well. And I think BAs are probably better placed than many because you've got some techniques that you can use to investigate situations or to explore scenarios or to model your thoughts. So why not turn those techniques on yourself and think about, what do you enjoy? Why do you enjoy it? What do you not enjoy? Why do you not enjoy it? Are any of those things that you don't enjoy, are they something you could turn around with, in the right situation or a different situation, or if there was some of other ingredients added, or perhaps the things you enjoy? Is there a desire to do more of it, and what do you need in order to do more of those things? I think if you do the thinking, at least at that level, then you can go and speak to your line manager or whoever you work with, and you can have a more productive conversation about, what could give you enjoyment, because you can then almost lay the data out in front of your manager and say, these are all the things I enjoy, these are the things I don't. How can I do more of what I enjoy? Here's the benefit for you. And how can I do less of what I don't enjoy? Because actually, if I do more of what I don't enjoy, right from the obvious outcome, which is someone leaving, they're probably not representing the projects as good as they could. The stakeholders they're working with are probably not getting excited about the change as they could be. Deliverables are probably not as good as they could be as well. Whereas if you're enjoying what you're doing, the level of what you're producing definitely go up.
Yes, definitely. Definitely.
So therefore, because it will go up, if you can explain that to your organisation and your management as well, it's obvious then that they should try and help you do something that's going to be more productive for them. Within reason. You can't just entirely just ditch everything, of course. The other side as well, I think, is by knowing what you don't like, maybe you can apply your BA skills to think about how you could change it a little bit. So a big an area I never really enjoy. Probably not a BA out there that does, but status updates. I think anything for me that detracts from doing the analysis is not time ideally spent. Although I do appreciate, that wider stakeholders should be kept abreast of what you're doing. So if you think about that scenario and you think, right, what's wrong with the way we currently report status? How could we improve it? How can I align better the analysis I'm doing so it's more transparent, more aligned to the plans and the milestones, so that I don't have to go through this quite separate exercise to give a status report? How can I make it so my analysis speaks for itself and people just need to look at it and they'll get the answers they need? And it's not always as simple as that, but
Yes.
it's definitely within your control to make it a little bit better and make that thing you don't enjoy a little bit quicker so you get over it quicker, or a little bit less unenjoyable.
That's a really good point. Really, really good. Thank you so much. Coming now to final thoughts, very conscious of time. What advice would you give anyone considering business analysis as a career?
Definitely do it. I think it's that's the number one.
Yes.
There's more to it, please know. That'll be a bit of a weird end to that question, but yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those roles that, I know that in university now, as an example, there are people doing, this as a student studying it as a topic, so they'll have the benefit of knowing what it is when they enter the job market. But there's loads of people that don't have that, and they just maybe, it's a role that they've not really thought about much before until perhaps the opportunity lands on them. I would say, there's not many roles that you can do that allow you sort of like the freedom to a large extent to sort of apply different techniques to any situation, to be creative within a limit, to meet different stakeholders, to learn about different problems, to shift industries, to move domains, to move organisations and apply it. It's quite, it's a skill set that you can apply in loads of different ways, and you can even apply it as a product owner or as a project manager with a BA mindset. They'll be better because their project deliverables will be better, or a CEO, as we spoke about, they'll all be better for having that mentality of thinking about how can I better structure my work, how can I make it more efficient, how can I engage more with people, make it easier to understand, how can I simplify the process. All of those things that we think about as BAs are all going to be beneficial in any other role. So I think, I would definitely encourage people to do it for those reasons. And if they really enjoy it, great, they can carry on, and it is a career, as we've said, that can develop and it can open many doors and create many opportunities. But if you decide you want to do something else, it will become like a foundation that will allow you to do the other things better.
Exactly, because there's no learning is wasted. So even if you do it and decide that that's not the path, everything you've learned can always be transferable to the role that you want to explore. So just do it. Just do it. That's really good. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, coming to our final question. If you had to describe the joy of being a business analyst in one sentence, what would it be?
Could have rehearsed this a bit more, but I obviously haven't. But I think it's just being able to see the picture that you've drawn evolve, and for people to look at the picture you've created. And actually, that's not one sentence at all, but it's basically as a BA, to be able to paint a picture that stakeholders from different perspectives can look at and immediately understand some very complex and very detailed information without having to do all that analysis yourself. And for those stakeholders to appreciate the role you've taken in painting that picture. That was a very long sentence, but had a few hands in there, and there was a couple of commas in there if you want to put
Yes. But still really helpful. Thank you so much, John, for joining us today. Thanks for all your tips and everything you've shared.
That's right. Thank you for having me on here. It's been really nice to be on and involved in the channel and in the session. Yes. So thank you for having me on. And
Yes.
yeah, it was brilliant meeting you previously.
And you.
And anyone knows, but Pippa and I bumped into each other at the conference as well, which was
Yes.
so nice to meet in person as well. And it's always nice to be involved and to speak, Pippa, as well.
Yeah, definitely. It's nice. It was nice to meet you as well and to hear your talk at the conference. Yeah, it was really, really good. More collaboration in the future. Yeah. All right. Thanks, everybody. As always, please don't forget to like, share this video. You never know who it might help. I'll also share John's details in the description. Go and watch his videos. They're really, really insightful. You learn a lot, as you've learned today. No knowledge is wasted. Till I see you in my next one. Peace.